what is your experience with it in the research you've done? How is social media impacting women? How is it impacting the work environment? What's your kind of thoughts on this, Christie?
I could take up another 5 hours talking about this, but
it's an important conversation, I believe.
Yeah, and particularly there's a lot of research, and I'm not going to go into it right now, around the impact for girls, particularly young girls at a more impressionable stage, and the level of filters we're using, not just on the physical, I could say on how someone's skin or body looks, but just a filtered life, a filtered lens. Any social media is generally a highlight reel. And so one thing I do endeavor, although I haven't been strategic about it enough yet, is, on certain platforms, I want to tell more stories of failure and overcoming failure and what that looks like, so we can normalize some of these things in a powerful way. One of my goals also, like you mentioned, like what kind of impact I want to have. And I was mentioning that, there's this whole concept of, aspiration directly being linked to visibility, and the fact that you cannot be what you cannot see. Well, if all we see are these kind of curated, influencers, I mean, sometimes I don't even know what they're influencing, but then we're doing a disservice to the next generation of young women. And I would love to highlight some more of the stories of women that are making bold moves in different ways in their careers and lives that are really admirable. And again, aligned with kind of a value set that resonates. I think the positive, I've talked a little bit about the negative, is that there's created a platform for more entrepreneurs, and often women, if you look at trajectories, are at home more than men in terms of caregiving roles. If we look at the gender balance at home, if we look at elder care, and social media and the virtual workplace in many ways has created more access to people and networks than would have happened just working a 9-to-5 that's presence driven. So in certain ways, it's equalized access more, which has been really interesting. But there's so many pros and cons around this and around how we show up in the world in different platforms. But I think the biggest thing is creating content that delivers value. And I always say to myself, you're looking at these, Instagram photos of certain people, and is this creating value? And not every post needs to, be something that is like life shattering. It could be just you sharing something you're doing in your life or whatever it may be to make it more human. Again, show the woman behind the bio. But again, it goes back to my why, the impact I want to have. And I always try to ground in, is this going to impact people positively? But I wish we could have more of that lens. I wish we could have more discussion around really the negative narratives and impact of overly curated highlight reels on younger individuals in particular.
Well, and of course, if you've done it, well, you would have done the research, but, there's certainly a lot of evidence, and it's basically a known fact about how the algorithms work and how they show up and really how they play to whatever is going on in your world, given not only what you say, but what you're watching and what's coming across your feeds. And it just gets fed. It blows my mind that, that's what's really going on. And it's, I want to say it was Joe Rogan, who has got young daughters, or a young daughter, one of his kids, whatever that might be. He actually read all of the stuff around TikTok, and he read all of the terms, the conditions, and all of the things. And he read it out loud. And basically, it is mind blowing what they draw, not only from you directly, what you're watching or seeing on TikTok, but what other apps you're using and what you're doing within those apps. So it's such an intertwined world that he's gone, and I'm letting my kids do this TikTok thing, and I'm going, no, I'm pulling you off right now. You can't use your phone anymore. But then he's realizing that this is what is, and it's how things are unfolding in the world, and the impact of social media, to your point, because we're talking about women and particularly the impact on young women and the self-esteem part of that as well. I just cannot imagine going to school today, given text messaging and phones and all the things that happen. We talk about bullying in the old days. It was somebody came up and pushed you down. you know, the bullying today still has that, but right now the bullying is about what can happen on social media, the how quickly a message spreads. And I really have a lot of compassion for the kids and what they must be dealing with in school today, and the parents that are having to navigate all of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great work and resources out there for parents too around this, but it is scary, and it's scary how much everything about our lives are tracked. I mean, even with abortion legislation in the US, you know, the discussion around women shouldn't use ovulation trackers on their own phones because then there's some other party being aware of anything, and you shouldn't search things. And, you know, this is getting to me, it's not just about technology, it's about bodily autonomy as well. But I think that there's such an intertwining, toxic area for people in terms of what's private for us anymore. I do also want to just touch upon, you know, body image, and this is not, you know, anything in my book or anything like that, but I've always, you know, had an interest in that. And when I was a freshman at Brown, I wanted to look at the impact of media at the time, not even social media, because it was TV, right? So on women's body image. And I said, it's so hard because we can't measure what it was in the US pre-media and TV show and post. So I said, I need a counterfactual where I can control for that variable. And I found this study of women in Fiji, and the fact that before media, Western media coming in, you know, the women of Fiji, it was celebrated to be larger, to look like you can bear children. There were all these cultural things. And then there was the integration, I think it was like the early 90s, of Melrose Place and Heather Locklear and all of these Western standards of beauty, and how the trajectory of those reporting with eating disorders and body dysmorphia and all of these other things went up. And so for me, this was like almost like a petri dish experiment of let's sprinkle in this one variable and control for it and look at it, that I studied at that, you know, young age. And I still remember that, because now we're not just talking about a TV show you turn on and turn off. You're talking about endless opportunity to access data, and such filtered data and images. So it's something we all have to be aware of as we talk about being bold and taking risks. It's, you know, how do we normalize certain things and then call into question some of the data and images and things that are projected to the people in our lives?